going to lead you through just some hip, groin, hamstring, hip flexor stretches. I've gotten a few requests on how to kind of get a stretch through the hips and a little bit more mobility and flexibility there. So I'm going to take you through some mainly yoga stretches that you can do on your own. You will hold longer than I'm going to hold here. I would say probably about a minute, maybe a little bit longer for each one on each side. So just a basic one for the hips. You're going to get started on your back, and this will be your figure four. So I'm going to take left leg up and cross left ankle on top of right thigh. Then I can either stay here if this is enough of a stretch, or if I really want to get into the outer left hip, I'm going to hug the right thigh, the right knee in towards the chest. So you can grab the back of the right thigh, or you can grab for the shin. You want to keep your left foot flexed, so toes are pulling back, and keep the left knee pressing away from the chest. So the tendency will be for this to fall in. You're going to actively press it away, and that's where you'll get the stretch through the outer left hip. You also want to make sure that your tailbone, the lower back, and the pelvis are not rolling up off the floor. So you're going to stamp that down. Think about lengthening through the spine, and then hug in. If you want to get hamstrings at the same time, you can lengthen the right leg and grab for the calf or peace fingers to big toes. So that will also work right side hamstrings. You're going to do that on both sides. So what you want to do on one, you have to do on the other. And just noticing, like for me, my right hip is tighter because it's a fake hip. So I have less mobility, less range there. So I have to work a little bit harder and pay a little bit more attention to those areas. So the range won't be the same, but that's okay. It takes time. So you have figure four on both sides. Similar to figure four, to also stretch outer hip, is going to be half and full pigeon. So you can go from I think a downward facing dog is the easiest place to go from because you've got length. So I'm going to take left leg up and then pull left knee in behind the left wrist. Now turn the shin forward. Ideally, I'm going to go for parallel. So shin would be parallel with the top of the mat. That's not always accessible for a lot of hips. So bringing the heel a little bit closer in towards the groin and towards the right hip, making more of a number 7 rather than a letter L shape. You can stay tall, so that will stretch the right side, hip flexor and into the quad, or you can fold so that the chest drapes over this front thigh and shin and lengthen through the spine. You can go all the way down to the floor. You can reach the arms out. But you want to make sure that you're even on both hips. So the tendency will be to fall to one side or the other, but you want even weight between the hips and find that spreading sensation. If you feel that you're really, really tight, I know a lot of guys, they tend to be like up here. So you want to have a block or something that can elevate you, that you can put underneath the hip and the thigh. So whatever height that needs to be to make this more accessible, this will be a better position. The more that you elevate the hips, the easier it's going to be for you. So you would do that on both sides. If you want to go for your double pigeon from here, the left leg stays exactly where it is. I'm going to swing the right leg out on top, and now I'm going to flex the feet and go ankle on top of knee alignment. So for me, you'll see I have this nice imbalance in my right hip. So I can have a block underneath the right knee, and I'm going to actively press down so that I activate the external rotators, and I feel the external rotation stretch on the right side. Keeping the feet flexed to protect the knee. Once you're in this position, if you feel like you're here, you can elevate again the hips. So I can come tall on a block. Might not feel as great, so I'm going to slide this foot across. Or if you feel like you have the height, you can push the hips back, and then you can start to walk the arms forward, chest forward, without rounding. So you want to maintain a flat back position so that you do get more stretch through the hips. This is your double pigeon. And again, what you do on one side, you will do on the other side. From here, take it back onto your back, so a little bit different hip stretch. I'm going to cross right knee on top of left and then open the feet out. So I'll turn this way so you can kind of see. So right knee on top of left, and then instead of keeping the legs, the shins closed in, I'm going to open them away from each other. I'm going to reach down with the hands and almost pull, not aggressively, but guiding the legs out and then towards me. So I'm pulling them apart and getting this really deep stretch through the right hip. So the leg that is closest to you is the one that will be getting the stretch. You can flex the feet, you can point the feet, you can grab underneath for the other side. You can also do this in a seated position. So that's on your back, a little bit more accessible. If you want to do that in a seated position, you're going to come through all fours, and I'll take the other leg on top this time. So the left leg is going to swing forward, and I'm going to stack left knee on top of right, and then open, pivot the shin, and walk the hips back. Again, block underneath hips, going to get you more elevated. You want even weight, so both sit bones on your mat. And if you can, you open up the feet. Mine are a little bit closer. You can stay tall. And again, you can start to walk the chest forward. If you want to add the arms, I can add left arm on top, right arm down the bottom. Maybe I can clasp with the fingers. And this is your Gomukhasana. So leaning slightly forward, push the head back so you're lengthening the back of the neck and not rounding forward, right? From here, let's go for a bit of a hip flexor quad stretch. So coming forward into half kneeling. Right foot is forward, left knee is back. In this position, I'm going to scoop the hips underneath me. So I don't want to go into this stretch like this. I want to get the hips underneath me, hip to rib connection, and then I can do a slight forward lean. In yoga, they'll definitely cue like a deeper forward lean, which is fine. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for and your range and what feels good in your body. So the deeper I push into the stretch, definitely I'll get more extension into the hip, so I get a lot of stretch through the hip flexor and into the quad. If that's not really accessible for you, it doesn't feel good, squeeze the hips in towards each other, tuck the hips underneath you, and then just press the hips slightly forward. You can reach both arms up. You can place one forearm on thigh. If you want to add a rotation or a side lean, so this will get more into the psoas, I'm going to lean over to the right. So to the same side as the front leg. If you have a block or something that can elevate the bottom hand, you'll take a side body stretch, or you can take side body stretch and then add some rotation. The right arm is going to press to the inside of the right thigh, and just breathing here, looking up towards the top hand, rotating the shoulders, the chest. And again, what you do on that side, you do on the other. From here, I'm going to go for quad stretch. Actually, let's stay in this position. So you can stay here and bend the back knee, grab for the foot. For most people, this is not going to be a good position if you cannot get to the thigh, right? So you don't want to be balancing on the kneecap. It's really not going to feel good. So if that's not accessible, you're going to come back into that half pigeon shape. And this should be a little bit easier. So now you take the pressure off of the kneecap and you bend the back knee and squeeze heel in towards glute. From your half kneeling, we'll go into now our groin stretch. So I'm going to be kneeling on my left knee. Right leg is out. You're going to press the whole foot down. So I'm imagining this knife edge of the foot pressing into the mat. It's parallel with the front edge of the mat. Inhale, shift forward, and exhale, shift back, hips towards back heel. Inhale, lengthen forward, and exhale, shift back. So you want to start to feel the stretch through the inside, the groin, the right thigh, and you'll get that by really pressing down through the right foot and keeping it flat. Just shifting forward and back. You can stay holding it back. You can come up, you can add spinal rotation, so if that feels good, keeping hips as square as possible. Right palm down, left palm down. It's going to be harder to rotate away from the leg, but it's a good practice to keep the hips square and find rotation through the upper body. Your final stretch, so again, you would do that on both sides. Your final stretch is to come into your frog position. So both knees are going to go wide, and you're going to look at the leg behind you. I'm not going to have the toes super close in because I'll get a deeper stretch if I open it up. So knee is in line with hip, ankle and foot is in line with knee. Flexing the foot, you can stay on the palms. You can lower to the forearms. You can look at shifting the hips forward and back. The more that you can shift it back, the deeper the stretch will be. And again, you're just gonna hold and you're gonna breathe, because every time you breathe into this, it should get a little bit easier, a little bit deeper to stretch through the groin. If you wanna take this one step further, you can take your block and place it underneath one knee. So again, you do this on one side, you do this on the other. So I'm gonna take the block underneath the left knee, and now I have one is elevated higher than the other. And I'm just gonna hold this position and breathe. Once I'm here, then I'll switch, I'll do the other side. And then once you've done both sides elevated, you'll come back into your center frog and just see if it feels a little bit deeper than the first time around. So hopefully that helps. Those are just some basic yoga and some fitness stretches, but that kind of works hips, quads, hip flexors, a little bit of hamstrings and groin, some spinal rotation. So give those a shot and just see how it feels for your hips. Again, you don't want to push to a place of pain. It's a place of discomfort. So stretch should be uncomfortable, but not painful. So just being mindful of your body and kind of what you need to work through that. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.